Hello and welcome to News Bulletin from CBATV, the voice of East Africa and beyond. We are here in Hargeisa, the capital of Somaliland. My name is Ajara Ahmed Tijani. First, the headlines. Fighting between Somalia's army and Al-Shabaab erupts in Middle Shabelle region. Sweden applauds Puntland democracy. Ugandan troops in Somalia say they killed 189 Al-Shabaab. Ethiopia's confirmed COVID-19 cases near 133,000. Bodies of Ivorian peacekeepers killed in Mali return home. Now the news in full. On Saturday, a fighting between the Somalia's National Army forces and Al-Shabaab broke out in the Middle Shabelle region. No casualties have been yet officially reported from both sides. Al-Shabaab and the federal government have been fighting for the last decade.
According to reports, there is a fierce fighting between the Somalia National Army forces and Al-Shabaab fighters in Rage Ela district in the Middle Shabelle region. Sources say the fighting broke out after Al-Shabaab fighters attacked a Somali military base in the district. Some of the residents who spoke to the local media said after the fighting, Al-Shabaab managed to take control of the district and there were casualties, including deaths and injuries of both sides. The federal government has not yet officially commented on this attack. On several occasions, Somalia National Army accentuated that they will intensify war on Al-Shabaab and remove them from the remaining areas, but the group still carries out attacks and assassinations in the southern and central Somalia.
The Sweden government has applauded Puntland's democracy performance during a virtual meeting between the regional state president, Said Abdullahi Deni, and the Swedish ambassador to Somalia, Stefan Tedler.
The Puntland state president, Said Abdullahi Deni, has held a virtual meeting with the Swedish ambassador to Somalia, Stefan Tedler, and some of his diplomat members. The agenda of the meeting was to discuss in depth to strengthen collaboration between the two sides, as well as accelerating the performance of Puntland democracy. According to Puntland officials, the Swedish ambassador to Somalia showed strong support for Puntland's democracy. He also discussed it with Said Abdullahi Deni to resolve disagreements between the federal government and its member states over the upcoming elections. The meeting comes as no agreement has been reached by the political stakeholders of Somalia for the upcoming parliamentary and presidential elections. Some regional state leaders and other presidential candidates had opposed the scheduled election date set by the federal government.
And to Ethiopia, the Ethiopian Ministry of Health said on Friday that the total number of confirmed COVID-19 cases in East African country rose to 132,881 after 555 new cases were reported.
The death toll from COVID-19 in the country has reached 2,060 as of Friday evening, after 3 new deaths were reported, the ministry said. According to the ministry, some 12,306 cases remain active, with 227 patients said to be under severe conditions. Ethiopia, Africa's second most populous nation, is one of the countries hardest hit by COVID-19 in Africa, after South Africa, Morocco, Tunisia, and Egypt. The Ethiopian government has been urging the public to implement COVID-19 precautionary measures to contain the spread of the virus. While Ethiopia took several steps to keep COVID-19 infections low and mitigate its economic impact, it is still severely affected by the virus. The pandemic's negative impact has resulted in reduced employment and household incomes. According to the surveys, more than half of households reported that their incomes were either reduced or had totally disappeared in April 2020, with female-headed households being hit harder. Employment rates plunged in early days of the pandemic and are yet to fully recover, suggesting a persistent impact of COVID-19 on the volume of jobs, especially in urban areas. About 8% of respondents lost their jobs at the beginning of the outbreak. Most affected were the self-employed, or those working as casual laborers in urban areas. Employment rates have since rebounded but continue to remain lower than before the pandemic in urban areas.
The newly re-elected President Yoweri Museveni has returned to the capital, Kampala, from his hometown in western Uganda, where he's been since he was declared winner of the country's controversial presidential election.
The newly re-elected President Yoweri Museveni has returned to the capital, Kampala, from his hometown in western Uganda, where he has been since he was declared winner of the country's controversial presidential election. Museveni was welcomed back with pomp and pageantry by large crowds of supporters who appeared in yellow wears, the theme color of the ruling National Resistance Movement Party, as the president convoy drove by. Museveni won the election by 5.85 million votes, while main opposition candidate Bobi Wine had 3.8 million votes. Earlier in the presidential campaign, the oppositions were accused of assembling mass rallies during a pandemic. However, Museveni supporters paid no attention to social distancing, and many were not wearing face masks during the victory rally. In the meantime, the lawyers of the opposition, Robert Kyagulanyi, popularly known as Bobi Wine, have revealed that they are perfecting legal plans to secure orders for his freedom.
The private property of Honorable Kyagulanyi, his home, is not a lawful gazetted place for custody. We've heard the police spokesperson saying that Honorable Kyagulanyi is being detained because of preventing other crimes, which we think it's unlawful, because under our laws, under our constitution, a person is not supposed to be held without in a place which is not gazetted as a detention facility. And even those who are held in detention facilities, they are allowed access to food, they are allowed access to relatives, they are allowed access to legal counsel. So we want a declaration from court that the private property of Honorable Kyagulanyi is not a prison, is not a gazetted detention place, and if there are any lawful charges against him, he should be detained in a place which is duly gazetted under the laws.
Wine has been under home arrest after he lost the controversial election to the incumbent president. The election was marred by electoral malpractices. The African Election Watch Coalition, which deployed 2,000 observers in 146 districts, said in a statement that they had observed irregularities, including the late opening of most polling stations, missing ballot papers, and illegally opened ballot boxes. The European Union and the United States of America did not deploy observers teams, but the U.S. Department's top diplomat for Africa said that the electoral process had been fundamentally flawed. Kamil Sadiq, CBATV.
And to the North Africa, mothers in the Tunisian capital rally outside a courthouse to denounce the passive, arbitrary arrest by authorities of their children, including many minors, for group anti-government protest that saw several nights of unrest in the country.
The newly re-elected President Yoweri Museveni has returned to the capital, Kampala, from his hometown in western Uganda, where he has been since he was declared winner of the country's controversial presidential election. Museveni was welcomed back with pomp and pageantry by large crowds of supporters who appeared in yellow wears, the theme color of the ruling National Resistance Movement Party, as the president convoy drove by. Museveni won the election by 5.85 million votes, while main opposition candidate Bobi Wine had 3.8 million votes. Earlier in the presidential campaign, the oppositions were accused of assembling mass rallies during a pandemic.
Forensics team in Libya have discovered 10 more bodies in mass graves in a once military-controlled town outside the capital Tripoli, the government of National Court said on Friday. 3 bodies were blindfolded and their wrists bound, the GNA's Interior Ministry said in a Facebook post on the latest grisly find at Tarhuna, 80 kilometers southeast of Tripoli. The United Nations had voiced horror when the mass graves were first discovered last June. Since then, more than 120 bodies have been exhumed there, including women and children, following the latest finds. The discovery last June came a day after the withdrawal of forces loyal to eastern Libyan strongman Khalifa Haftar from the town. Haftar had used Tarhuna as the main staging point for his failed attempt to seize the capital in a military offensive launched in April 2019. New York-based Human Rights Watch has said more than 300 people had been abducted or reported missing in the past in Tarhuna, which is now back under GNA control. Residents had reported that the local Al-Qani militia had often abducted, detained, tortured, killed, or disappeared people, said the rights watchdog. Libya has been racked by violence since a NATO-backed uprising toppled and killed longtime dictator Muammar Gaddafi in 2011. The conflict pitted the GNA, recognized by the United Nations and backed by Turkey, against the eastern-based administration of Haftar, supported by Egypt, the United Arab Emirates and Russia. A ceasefire was signed in October, and the rival camps have been agreed to a UN-sponsored political dialogue with presidential and legislative elections scheduled for later this year. Moving on to Central Africa, a little over 100 humanitarian workers of several organizations have abandoned their offices, finding refuge with the United Nations MESA since the occupation of Bangazau city by elements of the Coalition of Patriot for Change (CPC) on January 3rd.
As such, it is currently difficult to provide a significant humanitarian response to the population estimated at just over 23,000 internally displaced people camping at several sites, according to the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. In addition to the 18,000 who have crossed the river into Congo, as insecurity still reigns in the city despite UNMISCA peacekeepers regaining control of the area. Haruna Tambora, the director of Oxfam International Program operating in the region, outlines the challenges of the current situation. We can go 2 or 3 days without going to the site because the alerts don't allow us and the risks are high. So we're between the office, the base, UNMISCA, and between guessing. So we're not quite in perfect mobility to carry out humanitarian actions at the moment. The numerous displaced people in dire straits and camping together at refuge sites will return to their homes only once their safety has been guaranteed.
A United plane flew the bodies of Ivorian peacekeepers killed in Mali home on Friday. On the ground, the head of the UN peacekeeping mission in Mali, government officials and soldiers' families waited to receive them. A United Nations plane flew the bodies of Ivorian peacekeepers killed in Mali home on Friday. On the ground, the head of UN peacekeeping mission in Mali, government officials and the soldiers' families are waited to receive them. The head of the UN peacekeeping mission in Mali, MINUSMA, Denise Gelenspore, was full of praises for the fallen servicemen. Their painful departure is a reminder of the challenges faced every day on the ground in Mali. We strongly condemn these attacks against MINUSMA staff. This, he said, is a worrying development, but he must not let such events discourage them, said Gelonsore. At the airport in Abidjan, the men were killed when their armored truck hit an improvised explosive device (IED) during a patrol on the road to Timbuktu in central Mali in January 13. The makeshift bombs have also killed 60 UN peacekeepers in Mali. This, according to him, will be an opportunity to express to all the families that feel towards these brothers, your husbands, your parents, who pay the ultimate price, their commitment for peace for the country and for the sub-region, said Ivorian Prime Minister Ahmed Bakayoko. The 13,000-strong MINUSMA peacekeeping force has suffered 146 hostile deaths since it was established in 2013. To the Africa's populous nation, Nigeria has announced that it will take delivery of its first coronavirus vaccine doses in February, with health workers, top government officials, and vulnerable people to be given priority.
What we do have coming to the country is the Pfizer vaccine that requires about -70 degrees Celsius.
Nigeria has announced that it will take delivery of its first coronavirus vaccine doses in February, with health workers, top government officials, and vulnerable people to be given priority. This was confirmed by Mr. Faisal Shuaib, the head of the Nigeria's National Primary Healthcare Development Agency.
We'll be focusing more on those vaccines that do not require this kind of complicated cold chain mechanisms, right? So the Oxford AstraZeneca types of vaccine that require +2 to +8 degrees Celsius.
The vaccines, which could be as many as 100,000 doses of Pfizer vaccine, will be procured through the COVAX initiative backed by Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance, the World Health Organization, and the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovations. The first batch of the vaccine, which will only take care of maximum of 50,000 people, will be allocated to healthcare professionals working in COVID-19 isolation centers, those supporting them, as well as the country's senior political leaders.
This is why we are proactively making sure that we have these vaccines, and also bearing in mind that additional vaccines might be brought from the COVAX facility that will require this type.
Earlier, Nigeria acquired 3 ultra-cold freezers to keep the Pfizer vaccines at the required temperature. However, in the long term, the Nigerian government plans to invest in vaccines that are easier to store, such as those that are made by AstraZeneca and University of Oxford. So far, Nigeria has recorded over 114,000 COVID-19 infections and almost 1,500 deaths since the outbreak began. Kamil Sadiq, CBATV.
And here, a special report from Somaliland. For the past few days, Boro, the second largest city of Somaliland, has been hosting the country's 9th annual trade fair. But in this special report, we shall take a look at the hotel that was lucky enough to host this great event. Hafsat Abjirin has more.
The Somaliland's 9th annual trade fair is still underway, where many businesses from small-scale entrepreneurs to large companies have attended to showcase their services and products for their customers and the public. Dala Hotel, one of the leading hotels in the region, is where Somaliland's 9th annual trade fair is hosted. This means the workload falls on them. The hotel management has been working hard in recent days so that this annual trade fair can be carried out smoothly by making their staff well prepared. Muhammad Abdi Ahmad, Dala Hotel manager, has expressed gratitude to the participants of this annual trade and described the hospitality of the event as a regional victory.
The 9th Somaliland Business Fair has peacefully started in Boro, particularly our hotel Dala. So we are very glad to host such a large event. We are hosting more than hundreds of companies around Somaliland, including some foreign companies. So we are noticing, we are telling all Somali people who are living around the world to come in Boro to invest, because Boro is the land of opportunity. Boro is the heart of Somaliland. It has both political and economical strategy. So Alhamdulillah, the business fair has been started yesterday. It is running smoothly. The business is going on. Boro people are aware that they will get more discounts. So this is the introduction between different companies. Some of them have no branches in Boro and Boro population. So we are welcoming, as a Dala Hotel, we are welcoming all the foreign people, all other Somalilanders who are coming from Hargeisa, Berbera, Borama, Kabile. We are saying you welcome. Boro is welcoming you.
He also advised local and international entrepreneurs to come to Boro to invest it. Dala Hotel, which is one of the leading hotels in Boro, is where most residents, including the regional officials, come together to spend their leisure time. This hotel is just opposite the Central Park of Boro. Muhammad Abdi, the manager of the hotel, advises their customers to come in large numbers and they will double their services.
With that, we've come to the end of the news from CBATV, the voice of East Africa and beyond. Keep watching more reports, updates, breaking news, from this channel. My name is Ajara Ahmed Tijani. Bye for now.